Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sustainable Schools Virtual Summit. My name is Melanie Harwood, and I have a wonderful guest here. I'm very, very lucky that Kenneth has agreed to give us some of his very precious time. Now, Kenneth, the floor is yours. Take it away. You can tell us all about yourself and what you're up to.
Well, thank you so much, Melanie, first of all, for having me. My name is Kenneth Kwok. I am based in Hong Kong. And again, I think I wear multiple hats like everyone else, passionate about education, sustainability, impact, inclusion, innovation. As you can tell, I can go on and on. But I think, if you ask me, what are 3 or 4 things I would love to address this particular session is the intersectionality of innovation, impact, and inclusion. Because I believe that the future of education for all, and when I say for all, I mean literally for all, have to rely on multi-stakeholder approaches that leverages on technological innovation, intentional inclusion, and more importantly, capital that drives impact. So I hope that gives you a taste of what I'm trying to cover in this particular session, Melanie.
Kenneth, you need like 7 sessions to do all of those, my lovely. That is just like, but it's very interesting. On our journey, I'm sure that you will say the same. I have found on our path, as we launched Educate Global as a passion project, Denise Meisner and I, just over 2.5, almost 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. I mean, and
Time
I
flies.
noticed how everything is almost in silos. And there's this mentality that still, last night I'm busy working with a team. We've got a big funding bed going in for the EU. And I'm noticing that we can't work in silos. We need to join together, because what you bring to the table, I bring to the table. We have something so powerful that when you put it all together as one, nothing can stop it. It's like a juggernaut. And it's what you were saying. I thought that was fascinating. Inclusion, education for all, but it is capital and everybody working together. Kenneth, tell me about you and your background. How did you come into this sustainability space? What was the starting point for you?
I get asked this question quite a bit. My standard answer, which I'm not going to give here because it's boring. The and again, people appreciate my being frank and candid when it comes to education. That yes, it started as an entrepreneurial venture, right? I'm not going to lie, right? I am still
Absolutely.
quite
So did mine.
right.
Yeah.
Like I believe in you have to balance for profit and non-profit to make things scalable. So I will dial back time a little bit. When I graduated from university, literally, I told myself, I am going to learn everything I can about life before I turn 40. And then once I turn 40 in the near future, I'm going to settle and focus on one thing that I'm most passionate about. And that journey of 16, 17 years took me through investment banking, venture capital, family offices, real estate, building schools, healthcare, technology. I started Global Citizen Capital 3, 4 years ago in Hong Kong because I realized, like you said, we cannot work in silos anymore. And if you look at my virtual background, you see 6 trees. And I suppose for someone in the 30s, I decided that you have to have a stake in each of the various so-called divisions or compartments that drive sustainability and impact to make a difference. Because in order to be a bridge builder, you have to understand what the other side thinks. So I started with one tree, Global Citizen Capital. The second tree was Better Together Foundation, which is my nonprofit that focuses on youth empowerment and frankly looking for education opportunities for minority community. You know, we're talking about gender, we're talking about based on sexual orientation, we're talking about based on race. The third one is great. I have a for-profit and a nonprofit now. What am I missing? Oh my Lord, I'm still missing a lot of things. So the third tree came about, which is my anti-aging and well-being association. It's a business association. And the reason why it was formed is because, especially in Asia, Melanie, as you can probably appreciate, the competition is so harsh just to get into a school because frankly of supply and demand issues. And the stress.
No, it's not, Kenneth, because even here in the United Kingdom, all over the world, but we'll talk about that later. I think it's everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I see the brightest minds, the most curious minds, all cracking under mental health issues. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to start a, mental health and well-being type of platform to make sure that students get the resources and help, most importantly, they need when they are facing certain physical and mental health issues. And number 4, again, is my, I always believe, after, the years went by and innovation, and education didn't really merge that well, I decided I need to launch an innovation umbrella. So we started investing in companies that drive innovation, making it easier for even, frankly, anyone in least developed countries, as long as they have an internet connection, whether it's web-based or mobile-based, to have access to information. And this is one of the many things I really do appreciate, Melanie, and your co-founders, what you did, because you literally brought education digitally to anyone in this world, and kudos to you. And so that's my 4th tree, is innovation. And my last 2 trees I'm not going to go into too much, but yes, essentially it's extensions of making sure that even 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds have a voice in how they shape their future, and also to shape how SDGs can deliver in a local context. So voila, I guess 1 tree became a forest, and I'm still building trees every day.
So I love that, Kenneth. I love that you're building trees. You're building trees.
Planting, building, sowing, whatever you call it, but it's important. In Asia, we have this saying, if a tree is big enough, it provides shade for generations to come. And I want my trees to not only be big, I want them to be sustainable. I want them to keep growing and bear fruit every year. And I think as a community, that's what we hope for. Why are we doing all this impact sustainability stuff? It's so that our next generation can have a better future. So again, I think you and I'm very grateful to have finally come into your orbit, given all the amazing things that you do with the UN and etc. And yeah, I'm happy to explore how we can work together.
Do you know, when I started on this journey, because I was not involved in, I was a handwriting specialist. I was a mum and a social entrepreneur, and I created a handwriting scheme which did well in the United Kingdom. And I developed an assessment toolkit and teacher training. And it was just a chance meeting. The universe just sent me one evening, and I was sitting and having a chat, and I met this gentleman from the United Nations, Angus Mackay, and I said to him, what gives? What's happening? We had this conversation, and I knew so little, Kenneth. For someone who was pretty smart and middle class, working class, I didn't know enough. And it was only once I started on that journey and started learning that I thought, holy moly, my daughter is really going to, this is her generation. What am I going to do? As a parent, I know I need to do something about this. And we were watching my husband and I were watching the David Attenborough witness statement on Netflix this last week. And he said, there you go, there's the answer. And I said, John, you and I have had 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, intense of a learning process we've been to COP24, COP25. we've been building programs and we've been training hundreds of thousands of teachers around the world. And we understand this now. But the message that he is delivering, how many actually grasp what they need to do? And I said to him, the answer is education. It's everything that you said, Kenneth. It's everything, but it's from the ground up, from the age of 3, from the age of 0 right up. It's mothers, fathers, family members, carers, and children and teachers. But it hasn't been easy. I mean, as you say, getting into schools, and it's a process every day. And I still facilitate many of the schools. I still have my core schools that come in. I had one yesterday that had booked in a Zoom, and they said, we've got our bronze award now. And I said, no, you haven't. And they said, we have. And I said, no, you have to show me evidence that you are delivering tangible action. I know it's great. You've done the training. You've got the certificate. You've got the badge. I want the evidence. And my husband said to me, he said, you are so hard. And I said, no, we know that we have to have tangible evidence. Tangible evidence. I love what you say about trees providing shade, because look at what COVID has done. We're all considering what our legacy is going to be. Are we going to be good ancestors? We can't think in 4-year termly leadership blocks. We have to think in life, not just our generation, the next generation and the next generation. Are they going to be having a positive life as a result of our impact? Has our impact been negative, or is it going to be positive? Kenneth, I want to ask you something. You said that you wanted to get to the age of 40 and then only have one and then stop. Do you think, now that you know what you know, that you will stop at 40 and just have one? Or do you think that when I speak to you when you are 40, I'm going to have another 20 trees around you?
Yeah. Well, I think again, I acknowledge that I am in a privileged position, thanks to my parents as well as hard work. Again, I think part of being a leader, and I'm not saying I'm a leader, it's about being self-aware and be grateful, and also recognize the hard work that you and the people around you have done. Because of various engagements with regenerative medicine, my biological age has actually gone back. So I am buying time. Who knows when I actually turn 40 biologically? Technically, age-wise, I'm not even there yet. But to answer your question, yes, a lot of things have changed since I made that promise to myself 15, 16 years ago, so to speak, right? But the unifying factor, which is essentially the DNA, is education, like you said.
Yes.
You can't pursue intergenerational or systemic change if it's not a bottoms-up approach. And that has been laid bare by COVID-19. Anyone who, no matter where they are in the socioeconomic ladder, will recognize the fact that no matter how protected you seem to be, when a global pandemic or crisis hits, it affects everyone, right? And my answer to you is that education will be the core, i.e. the forest would be potentially education oriented, but we still have to build rivers, right? We have to build a lot of things to echo a forest, right? And this is why, I'm very honored in many ways to speak with you today, Melanie, because I think, especially in Asia, when you talk about SDGs, and I'm not the first person to say this, as a region, we are a bit behind in adopting the SDGs. And that makes sense because a lot of our economies are still building and growing. At the same time, like when we talk about educational startups or any ventures in education, if your DNA and your blueprint has a sustainability strategy embedded, there's no such thing in this world saying that, well, because of that, you know, you lose clients or you lose capital or you lose revenue. In fact, I would argue it's the other way, right? The more you can demonstrate that yours is a sustainable and ongoing business that looks after the world, as my mentor loves to say, if you can save 1 billion lives and educate 1 billion minds, you will make $1 billion. So again, the tree is limitless to me. I can even have just one tree, but who knows how huge this tree can be, right? But you know, one more thing before I hand it back to you, Melanie. I think it's a lot of people talk about change makers, and frankly, a lot of the change makers I support in Hong Kong, in China, in Southeast Asia have all taken your classes and spoken to teachers that you probably have spent a lot of time, and it is blood, sweat, and tears. Education is not just, oh, I do a Zoom meeting, I teach, they listen. Absolutely not. There's a lot of follow-up, there are a lot of, you know, follow-throughs and, you know, questions and perspective sharing. I mean, it's endless. So, I mean, an educator has had it very difficult during COVID-19. So to all of you educators out there listening on this call, again, I cannot say more thank yous on behalf of everyone who's still learning from you, because you have really shown your resilience, both mentally and physically, to ensure that your ecosystem can still learn against the harshest conditions I think the world has faced in modern history. So, you know, again, apart from giving thanks, also allow our students to give back to the teachers by bringing their voice, bringing their soft and hard skills. And, you know, frankly, let them also, you know, help you in ways big and small, because we're supposed to support each other. That's how a forest grows.
You have hit the nail on the head there. In November, so Educate Global works in a system whereby when we first started out, I'll be the first to say I was totally wrong. I got it wrong. I thought we only needed one climate change teacher in every school. And we came back to the drawing board and we launched it. It was COP25, where we admitted, we said, this is great, but we have to start again. We're going to have a reset. And everybody was like, why? Keep on going. And we just said, no, it's not delivering the tangible action that we were providing so much support already. So what we do is we have a bronze award. The head teacher or principal nominates the sustainability and climate literacy lead. They nominate 5 support team members and we get them through the entry point. But the school has to deliver the carbon footprint buster challenge. And we always say to them, hand that over to your pupils. Work in communion with your pupils. Let them, all of this knowledge that you've now acquired, let that start become the spinning vortex. Then we go to the silver awards, where you now add other teams underneath that main team. So it's like a sort of this pyramid scheme sort of happening there. And then we insist that by the end of silver, every teacher in the school has just done one of our courses. And then we start integrating programs and content, and because these teachers are smart. They are smart. They know those kids. They know their communities. They know what they can deliver. Then what we did in November, we did something totally outrageous, which I think even I thought to myself at times, Mel, you've bitten off more than you could chew here. But I had done some training and I loved it. And I contacted the professor and said, can you deliver this carbon literacy training to my teachers, to a group of teachers? And she said, no, we need professors to facilitate. And I said, look, I've been facilitating for you. I know you've just delivered to 192 professors in Yale University, and I have personally been involved in the facilitating with 162 professors around the world. Why don't we turn it on its head? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, let's ask university students, we just need 5, and they can facilitate, and then we train them. So she put an advert out in the school's intranet, the university's intranet. We had, within about 15 minutes, we had our 5, and they kept coming. We had to close it at 15. Kenneth, those university students that became our facilitators were so powerful. They guided us through that training. So we would train them on a Thursday afternoon for sort of 2 hours. And then we would deliver the teacher training on the Monday afternoon. And it was 4 weeks for 2 hours. The university students came into their own, where we started saying to them, I mean, I said, look, the technology, must be my mindset, because I didn't grow up in a technological era. I was in my 20s when I started having to work on one of these old word processors. Now you can do it all. You've got phones going, you've got iPad, you've got the whole, your brain is hardwired to it. Mine, and I find that I become flustered. So there was one where I said, I don't know how to use Padlet. So one of the students said, I'll do a training on Padlet. And I said, would you? And then the other student that said, I'll do a training on PowerPoint for all of you. And the other, I'll do. And each week, one of these students did something. And there was one student, her specialism was she was doing environmental studies. I can't remember what her main, what her end goal was. And we had some teachers come in from the UAE. She built an infographic of carbon sinks in the UAE and carbon sinks in the UK. We sat there with our mouths open. The UAE teachers were in tears, and they said, we had no idea that those are carbon sinks in our own country. Now we can go back. And after that training session, I contacted the professor and I said, if you don't give her a book deal, I'm giving her a book deal, because that is the best thing I've ever seen. She said, So she went away and she came back. She said, no, the university's given her a deal. That's it. I said, oh, well, that's her life mapped out for her for the next sort of 3-4 years. I think that if we turn everything on its head and we successfully realize that these young university students have worked through a system and they've lived through this tech. These kids are going to be our facilitators, and they need that work experience, because there are things from our generation that they don't have, like sometimes our verbal communication skills, our physical communication skills, our confidence, because we've got life experience just by doing this on a day-to-day basis. And what we're going to be working on now is a project that is going to go out, cross toes, cross fingers, we're going to trial this in at least one hub school in every EU state. And we're going to work with a university where the students facilitate the teachers and the pupils, because there has to be this symbiosis where we connect, because you are right. We need to stop going from the top down and think, oh, the teachers are going to do it all, because they also need assistance and they also need to be upskilled. How are we going to upskill 100 million teachers to be carbon literacy specialist teachers in the next 12 months? How are we going to do it? I'm going to ask you that question. What would you do?
Well, I have a very famous saying for this type of curiosity-driven questions, and it's, what do my students do? So yes, I'm going to ask them right after our call and get back to you. No, but I think in all seriousness, as you may know, I am speaking at the Davos Agenda this year.
Yes.
And again, I'm still in shock that someone in my profile would be chosen, because there's so many more deserving voices to be heard in this world. But I also realize when I look at the agenda, there is a renewed focus on education. So even a organization such as World Economic Forum recognizes that education needs to be, continue to be promoted as a core pillar of recovery. And I think if you take a step back and you analyze, how do we empower the youth to lead? Like you said, by asking them to be facilitators, giving them the responsibility, instilling in them a sense of, a lot of these young adults, I like to call them, they have not been jaded, for lack of a better word, in life. They are fierce. I mean, that's what they call themselves. They are social justice warriors, and they will not be told otherwise by anyone, because in their heart, there is a fire or passion that's burning. And 5 years ago, there isn't a platform for them to really make that voice, right? Again, we look at Miss Greta Thunberg, we're like, great, there's one. Actually, no, there's a 15,000 strong army out there in different languages and different cultures that are not being recognized. And it's our job to build these bridges and platforms so that their voices can be heard, right? So, for example, at my session at Davos Agenda, I am interviewing a few next gen leaders who are ranging from age 8 to 12 to 16 to 20 on the same question raised to me, which is, how do you accelerate grassroots innovation? Surprisingly or non-surprisingly, the best answers come from the 8-year-olds and the 12-year-olds. And this is why I really, applaud World Economic Forum for allowing us to use our speaking role to bring in the voices of those who may not get a seat at the table at Davos, right? But at the same time, Melanie, as you said, it also takes people like you and I to give the next generation leaders that platform, so whatever they say can be quoted in a humongous forum like UNGA or Davos. Or, I also serve on the youth council of World Humanitarian Forum, and there the youngest youth counselor is 16 years old, and he, Siddharth, probably knows more about international development than I do, and I'm ashamed because I'm double his age, and more, right? And this is what I'm saying. It's like, if all of us as a community, as organizations, as ecosystems, all frankly put aside our egos, which there is, I have to admit, everybody likes to be, a renowned speaker, 40 under 40, all that, that's all great, but you can't take it with you when you, reincarnate into a better life in the future. So guess what? Once you have that title, don't hold on to it. Let other people benefit from this title. And I've been preaching this for months and years. And frankly, I think after COVID-19, people are listening.
Yes.
And again, I think what you're doing with climate change and all that, and imagine a 65-year-old grandfather who's always been a naysayer in climate change. When their 16-year-old nephew or grandson tells them, grandson probably, yeah, tells them, hey, grandfather, this is actually happening, they will listen and their minds will change and they will affect their friends, right? That's what I'm saying. This whole intergenerational thing only can happen if the youth get to speak up, and you are in a prime position to do that, Melanie, with your network. And again, happy to support that, across the Asia communities
Kenneth,
as well.
I think that you've got it spot on, but we have got to join together. And I think that you also, with egos, I mean, hey, I have a huge ego and I've had to put it in check many times. I come off and I go, why is that guy like that? Why is she like that? And then my husband says, Mel, do you know who the person at fault is? It's you. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear that. And he says, please don't send that email. Please breathe. And he says, go and have a cup of tea, put that ego in check. Right. I think if we don't join together, we have very little time. A lot of the reports coming out in the last week are saying to us that we have possibly 7 years, and then we start hitting tipping points that we cannot turn around. We also know that if two little old ladies like myself and Denise can launch something from our living room tables. Denise is originally from Texas in America. I'm originally from South Africa. I'm based in the United Kingdom. Denise is she's also in the United Kingdom, in Wales. I call Swansea, Wales, like it's the end of the world, but she's there, we're on Skype all day, we live on Skype. It's like, where are you? What you doing? Have you seen that document? What did she say? What did he say? Oh, he did what? So if two little old ladies like us can do this from home and get into more than 329,000 schools in 43 countries with an idea that we floated. We just said to everybody at the UN, look, we've got this idea, we've done this before. We know that we need to upskill teachers. And they all said, no, it's never going to work. But do you know why it worked, Kenneth? Because we took our egos and we put them in check. And it was getting down to everybody else and saying, what do you need? How can we help you? How can we fix this? Where have we gone wrong? How do we make this better? And it was about bringing other people in, bringing youth and, activists in and saying, how do we do this? How do we? And it was that feedback. But now that we've got to this point, we cannot continue this phenomenal growth unless we have facilitators in every region in the world. There can only be, there's one of me, there's one of you, but your division, you should run all of your region. And then we need somebody that is focused and driven, that has a network already. Like we had that network, you see, we already had that network in school. So whoever is out there and is listening to Kenneth and I, if you have a network in schools already, whatever it is, whatever you're doing, maybe you're an ex-head teacher or an ex-teacher, we are looking for those facilitators to run entire regions and countries for us and to get those branches to go out, because there's only so much we can do physically with time zones. We need individuals in Asia, individuals in America, South America, Africa. That's the only way that we're going to deliver this. And that's, I think, for how we're going to get those 100 million teachers is by working together and meeting, having maybe a consortium or an alliance. I love it. Yeah. Somebody said, we've got something called the IMPI Alliance. Now, because I come from South Africa, that's very pertinent to me, because we had this great leader a couple of 100 years ago. He was called Shaka Zulu. And his greatest warrior was an IMPI. And the IMPI uses a pincer movement. They go in the front, middle, and then they have like a group of soldiers that go around the back and then encircle the poor old chaps that are going to be eaten up in the middle. So, and Robert Mackay is from Scotland, and he says, you know that we are an IMPI alliance. He said, we are all autonomous, but we work together. And by doing that, we are unstoppable. We can achieve absolutely anything. Kenneth, I want to ask you, when you started out, you were saying that it's so difficult to get into schools. Do you think now, with your profile, with your experience, with your network, is it now possible for you to bring change into that education system, because they know you and they trust you and they have that experience with you? Do they want change? Do schools and educators and head teachers and teachers want that change?
Yeah. Well, I think it's driven by youth. Everyone asks me, what's your silver lining of 2020? I'm like, I made a lot of new friends in the education space. Right? And like you said, Melanie, it's not about possession or ownership. It's about sharing and affording other people what we've built on and allowing them in. Yeah. I would say the easiest low-hanging fruit that for us to work together on is, we in Hong Kong, we've worked on many young change maker programs. There's a particular program for young change maker incubator, which we worked on with a school. Okay. Because we wanted to take an example of, if a school in Hong Kong wants to innovate on how to give their students what I call a young global citizenship program, right? Again, global citizen capital is named because I want everyone as part of my community to be a global citizen, no matter your age.
Absolutely.
And when you approach it from that point of view, we have had in 2020 around 15 to 18 projects from, various, I would say if I look at the numbers, we worked with probably 10 international and local schools in Hong Kong and 2 or 3 in
During
China
the
already.
pandemic. You rock,
Well,
Kenneth. You rock.
Well, it's not
You
that.
rock.
It's not that because Hong Kong is a very small place, right? Even in lockdown, frankly, it comes and goes. If there's a wave, Stanley, when the government says, hey, you can go out for 2 people in-person meetings, we seize those few days and we make all these meetings happen. And then in a safe distance way, clearly, wearing masks. And then after that, we go back to, Zoom. So I think the point is, we have youth banging on their doors, or our doors, saying that, Kenneth, I know this is my calling. I have been lost all my life. I may not be the smartest person in school. I'm not a straight A student, but I really care about no plastics. I care about carbon sinks. I care about carbon emission. I care about all these things. And I look at them, it's like, wow, great, welcome to the party, right? And like you said, everything is about leading by example. And the other thing is Asia itself is a multi-language society. So guess what we did? We went out with, like you, with an open call to university students at the top universities in Asia, targeting the students studying in the environmental sciences and essentially any biology or healthcare type of majors. And he said, hey, would you like to play a role in climate change? If you do, you can join our alliance, like you said, and we will promote your work globally. And we also have to dangle with them the carrot. Yes, you get to now be part of the UN SDG action campaign. You get to join the Unite 2030 community. You get to, take classes with Melanie's ecosystem. And if you incentivize people the right way, which you should anyway, that's how win-win-win works, people come on board. So I would argue that in 21, I seek to build my existing networks of both high schools and universities that I'm currently working with my team and our ecosystem. I think it stands around 30. I really do hope to build that network to maybe hopefully 100 by the end of this year. Again, it could be just having one student from a new school from Bangladesh joining our movement, because then you know what? We have a local ambassador and a voice in that country. And that voice can create a humongous ripple effect if we also observe local traditions, cultures, and languages. So, and that's where the capital comes in. We have to fund, technology innovations in various different languages and platforms. Yes. And I suppose that's where GCC comes in and kind of support all these nonprofit and hybrid activities. So yes, definitely 21 is you and I and our ecosystems working together and making sure that climate action and climate change is no longer doubted, unlike some various politicians across the pond like to say all the time. So
oh my goodness. Well, I think that it's just knowledge, it's understanding, it's fear. Sometimes when we're afraid of something, we deny it, because denial is like the best medicine. There's no better medicine than just going, no, it ain't happening. No. It's fine. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. Keep on moving. My husband always says, look at everybody rubbernecking. And I go, what? He says, they're rubbernecking. And I say, that's a funny saying. And he says, well, look, he says, they're all leaning out of the car trying to see what's on the other side of the road. Yeah. And he says, denial is the best medicine, Mel. Just say it ain't happening. So you've got to educate them. I see us all connecting together, and I see the schools joining together. We've already noticed that. We found that when we had one school in the UAE that then I took the head teacher, Asha Alexander, with me to COP25. Then she came back, and the leadership of the private group she worked for, she became the director of climate change for that entire group. And she's now encouraging all of the schools in that GEMS group to do the Educate Global Awards, to get through the processes. We've had many, people say to me, well, but why would you want to do that one? We've already got eco schools, we've already got those schools, we've got green schools. And I say, do them all. Do them all. because each and every one brings something very special, their own unique brand. They've been going for many years, but where we are different is to eco schools or green schools or the green flag schools, is that we provide that beginning, that grounding. We upskill the teachers first, and then we flip it and we give the children the opportunity to take it. But it's not all about lesson plans. It's about driving forward where we are going next. So I'm going to let you into a secret.
Mm.
I interviewed an amazing professor on the Sustainable Schools Virtual Summit, a lady called Susan Krumdiek, and she blew my mind. I didn't know half. She has an incredible book called Transition Engineering. And she told me a story about 100 years ago where there was a fire in New York and there were lots of young seamstresses that died. And the 62 engineers got together and they said, this can never happen again. Not the government, engineers, just in New York. And they said, we need to make designs so that this buildings are safe. And today, you and I always know them as those two fire doors that open outwards so that we can get out. And what happened as a result of those two fire doors? That's transition engineering. What happened as a result of that was that there were insurers in Philadelphia that said to their factory owners, no, we're not going to insure you unless you go and do what they're doing in New York. And that spread globally before it ever was made law by any government or any health and safety executive. It just became a given that if you didn't have those two fire safety doors, you were not going to have staff, you were not going to have insurance. And I see what you are doing and what we are doing and what everybody else is doing out there in the space is to build those two safety doors. We want to ensure that we have the safety doors in place so that it comes from that horrific experience, because we're experiencing climate change, we're experiencing the landslides. One of my members of staff works online and there was a horrific landslide in the Philippines. And she said to me, we're asking our government, our regional government, why they allowed businesses to build roads in our forests, in our protected areas, because now there are hotels there, or there were hotels there. The trees are gone and they're no longer stopping the rainwater from coming down. The earth is a very fine ecosystem, an environmental protection system of its own. The earth has created its own fire doors, and we remove those fire doors at our peril. So it's you and myself and World's Largest Lesson and UNESCO and green schools and green flag schools and eco schools and every other sustainability team, wherever you are, whoever you are out there working in schools. Let's all join together. I would love to deliver what Kenneth is delivering in all of our Educate Global schools. And I'm quite sure that what we're delivering in Educate Global, we can deliver in Kenneth's schools. And that way, we're going to have something which will have an exponential growth that we would never, ever have expected just on our own. Susan Krumdiek has agreed, after just doing one talk with her, to build a new GCSE, which we call GCSEs, you call them BTECs or International Baccalaureates. It's a pathway to higher education in transition engineering. I was in a meeting and I just mentioned it to a couple of professors. And I had emails from professors saying, can my son do that? Can my daughter do that? My own daughter said, Mum, can I do transition engineering? I said, the world is going to need a minimum. I see us needing about 10 million transition engineers. Every business, every industry, every individual, every region, every government, every department is going to need highly skilled transition engineers. We're going to need sustainability experts. We're going to need SDG compliant and knowledgeable town planners. We're going to need builders that have SDG knowledge and understanding about regenerative building and how to build in such a way that it is sustainable. we're going to need all of these skills. Sustainability is in everything we do. It's in what we eat, it's in what we breathe, it's in what we walk down that road, what we put on our backs, what we switch our lights on with. It's everything. It's everything. The only way we're going to do this is do it together. So Kenneth, I'm amazed. I'm amazed with your Kids for SDGs. I'm amazed with everything that you've been doing. We can't be a master of all, and because then we're a master of nothing. I have to tap into your knowledge bank, and I would love my knowledge bank to go into yours, and that's the way we're going to do this, because I don't even have all those trees. I now have got to go. Kenneth, I've got to go back.
How many schools do you have? How many schools do you have? It's like, I think that will fill up stadiums of trees.
No, but Kenneth, do you know, to me, I think that if we have every school, I know that I can rest. I know that that our vision, what Denise and I set out to do was, we said to the director of Planet at the UN, we want to deliver a cross-curricular climate curriculum from the age of 3 upwards. And everybody said to me, it's not possible. But it is, because it's happening in our schools now. And do you know, Kenneth, the schools that are delivering those curriculums, they are the ones attracting all the parents and the students. They are becoming oversubscribed because it's what they realize is their future. If they don't know it, they're going to be left behind, and we don't want to leave anybody behind. We have to learn this. We have to grab this with both hands and never let go, and just go, right, one foot in front of the other, and let's learn this. We've got this, guys. We've got it. We're sharp. I know that we're small brain primates and we like shiny things, as Susan Crumdeek says. I said to her, why do we like certificates and badges? She says, we're small brain primates, Mel. We like shiny things.
Nothing wrong with that. Accreditation.
Where are you going to? What is your one focus that you're going to focus on over the next 6 months to a year? What is the one thing that you want to achieve in the next 12 months in your schools?
Yes, well, if I have one wish, and that would be, again, digital inclusion. A lot of the tech that we have, again, like you, I learn about machine learning, artificial intelligence, spatial computing, words that get thrown at me. And you know what? I'm still learning as well. You know what? I thank my students for making me feel like a student sometimes. And as we go through all these, digital transformation and systems integration, all that good stuff, I'm also learning from my investments, my partnerships. And I realize that if you take the passion that people do in Silicon Valley or wherever, whatever startup ecosystem it may be, to create the next so-called billion-dollar unicorn, I think education and its digital transformation, it's a multi-billion-dollar, multi-horned unicorn, as I like to call it.
Absolutely.
And it starts with tech, right? I didn't even realize. I'll give you one example. Microsoft, Google, Facebook, their systems can talk to each other because they made it that way, because they are protective. What we're trying to do, Mel and you and I, and the rest of everyone on this call who dials in,
to each other,
is taking down those barriers and creating consensus. And there has a lot of tech right now that can do that with the permission of the 3 parties and still protect security and deployment. And that's what the world needs. And I don't think any big tech company would think, oh, it's education, there's a risk I may lose business. And they are also adjusting the business model to cater to universities and schools. Like at World Economic Forum, every major university has a seat at the table. But you're right, Mel. Those people at the seat may not know climate change inside and out. Frankly, they know the concept, but they don't know how to bring it forward. So it's our job using tech and innovation to make it easy for anyone from 3 years old to 65 years old to learn about climate change. So yes, the next 6 months definitely identifying the right technical and technological innovations to make it happen, and on a cross language and cultural barrier basis. So sounds like fun, right? And most important thing, Mel, we actually like what we do.
We
I think
love what
people
we do.
sometimes people think that, oh my God, it's so much work. And yes, people say, yes, when you enjoy it, it's not work. But I think we live and breathe it. And people can feel our passion when we get up on the virtual stage or in a big stage at the UN well, to kind of make our point. So again, when COVID-19, you know, when we recover from it, I am sure we have a lot to say
Yeah,
at this
Kenneth.
year's UNGA. And who knows, at COP it's 26 as well.
Kenneth, Kenneth, it's the first time in my life I feel alive. I've always been passionate and driven and focused and doing whatever I do. Doing this, I have a purpose. I know what I said to my mother's 81 and she can't see very well. And I said to her, Mum, I'm a late starter, but at least I'm starting and I know what my life purpose is. And she said, what's your life purpose? And I said, Mum, I know that my mission in life is to upskill 100 million teachers in the world to be carbon literacy specialist teachers. She said, whatever for, my dear? And I said, because those teachers are going to transform our world so that when you and I are gone, Mum, my daughter and your granddaughter and her children will look back at us and say, those were good ancestors. Good ancestors.
Amen.
And Kenneth, I love it. I sometimes my bones, my body last night, I said to my husband, I'm so tired. I can't anyone. He said, come on. He said, just get some rest. And then I got this message from Denise at like 1 in the morning. She said, I've done section 1.13 of that document, Mel. And I said, right, I'm going to carry on and do 1.134 of that document, Denise. and I know that once we put that bid in, I know we don't have much time. Once we put it in, we let it go out into the ether. And no matter what, we keep on walking. I don't know who's keeping us standing up straight or what it is, but it's this drive and this innate sense that we can all do this. And I've never felt this alive in my life. Never. I have and everybody I meet, the teachers I meet, and the children, I have little 9-year-olds. Then we had a 4-year-old the other day, Kenneth. She made her mother write out 100 times, the coral is dying. She said to her mother, you're going to sit and write with me? You want me to do writing practice? We're going to write together, Mum. The coral is dying. And then she looked at her mother and she said, what are you going to do about it, Mum? There you go. We are living, breathing mechanisms that are showing everybody else, let's join together. The only way we're going to do this, guys, everybody, wherever you are, if you're listening in your car, you shouldn't be because it's COVID, we're all locked up. If you're listening to this on your podcast or you're watching this or you're in a school or you're a head teacher, join us. We have multi-academy trusts coming in. These CEOs know that for a USP for their schools, if they don't deliver sustainability, SDGs, transition engineering, carbon literacy, climate literacy to their pupils, they know that's what the children and their parents want. That's what our planet wants. Because if we don't do it, we are stumped. So I don't want to be stumped. What did somebody say to me? I want to be verlicht. I don't want to be verkrampt. And I said, what does that mean? And they said, well, in German, I think it's in Dutch. Verkrampt means I don't want to be cramped. I want to be enlightened. Verlicht means enlightened. And I said, that's it. I want to be like that. Kenneth, I cannot wait. This is the first talk that I'm having with you and introducing you and your schools to all of our viewers, all of our listeners. Before we go, I want you to promise me something. Would you agree that our schools in Africa, UAE, America, United Kingdom, Italy, can some of our schools start connecting with your schools and start doing some of your training programs? Would you allow them to spread their wings across the ocean and the airwaves? Would you allow them to do that?
Yeah, in Hong Kong, we work with an education institution called ITS Education. And frankly, they are what I like to call the bridge builder. They are consolidating all the great work, and it's through them the network of schools is growing, because they also service their school itself, but they also service the needs for many schools, because they're the only team in Hong Kong, or frankly in Greater Bay Area, that has sustainability and climate change experts. Like you said, it's also a business evolution, right? Private schools need this because their parents are demanding this. So, like I said, I would love, like you, also again wearing many hats, non-profit, for-profit, hybrid, just being a good parent, right? Allow us to come together and find the lowest hanging fruit to work together. And like you said, maybe just cross-training opportunities and know-how sharing. But that conversation has to start, because Asia needs to, like I told you, I think the first time I messaged you on LinkedIn a few months back, the two worlds and all the worlds have to come together. And nothing is better than me joining, for example, a committee or and volunteer my time to see how it can be done before I bring in the relevant teachers of various very prominent schools across Asia to also come to the party. And who knows what that brings, but yes, connections will definitely be made.
Absolutely. Oh, you have no choice. You're going to be on our board, on our panel of advisors for Educate. That's it. Because your ideas, your innovation, that's something that we need. We've got to have that. I want all those trees. I want all of those trees in Educate Global. I have to.
They are yours. Take them whenever you want. Because again, I built them for everyone. I built it for all of us. It's not my tree, your tree, it's our tree.
Our tree.
So yeah.
Love them. I love them. I'm a small brain primate. I love shiny things. That for me is the best ever. I've never ever seen a banner like that. I've been watching you talk, and I've been looking at the DNA strands and the puzzles and the neural pathways, and my brain is going, how did he come up with that?
Well, it's like, Mel, it's like this SDG pin, right? We have 15 versions of it because we design it for tech, for environmental, for climate change. Again, sometimes, you know what? I like shiny things. So my designers, God bless them, just bear with me and say, okay, Kenneth, you need an update to your tree because you're talking about innovation. So this is your new design. Please use this for Davos. I'm like, okay, thank you.
I love it.
Yeah, but no, I said I'm very grateful for this opportunity to, frankly, share love, share faith, and share optimism.
Yes.
Allow each of us to be vulnerable, that we have a lot of shortcomings, and be aware that there is still a lot of work to be done. But spiritual wise, I think I am fully energized thanks to you. And again, 2021, it's going to be a amazingly transformational year. And I thank you in advance for your patience, your kindness, your guidance, and of course, your sense of fighting collaboration. Thank you so much, Mel.
Thank you, Kenneth. To all of you, if there's any of you that want to ask Kenneth a question, all of his details are in the page below. If you are listening to this on the podcast, all of the information is in the podcast. All of this will be transcribed, everything, all of his details, his website, his emails, you can get hold of his team, because he's pretty busy, folks. Don't bombard him with loads of emails. Don't do that to me either. You only come to me, honestly, I get all these lovely LinkedIn messages, and I just say, please, everybody, You know, you've got to understand, because I had somebody say, why don't you answer my emails? And I said, I got 3,900 emails coming in a day. Please, you're killing us here. We've got work to do. So if you do want to be a speaker, if you are a head teacher anywhere in the world, head teachers, we know you are the change makers and the leaders for our futures, for our children's futures. Come and join us. Come and meet our other head teachers. My head teachers are going to be meeting with Kenneth's head teachers. We are going to be joining in an alliance together globally. If you want to join this alliance, if you want to be a part of this, get in touch with us at support@Educcate Global. Remember, 2 C's in Educcate Global, EduCateGlobal.org. It has been an absolute pleasure. I cannot wait to speak with Kenneth again on loads of other items, and that's it. You know, he has no choice. I know where he lives now, and I'll come and I'll get him for you folks. Thank you to Kenneth. Thank you to all of you. Please go and look up Kids for SDGs, Synctree Academy, Better Together, Global Citizen Capital. Look up Kenneth Kwok on Google. Look at his page. Go and look at everything he's doing. Give him some love, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody out there, we need that love. We thrive on it. We need your support. We get by on it. That's what keeps us going. So from me, Melanie Harwood at Educate Global, over and out, and we'll see you all on the other side.